Hi everyone, welcome to tonight's live stream. My name is Matt, the events officer here in Adelaide, and joining me tonight is Ryan Tezak, who is on the other side. There we go.
Hey guys, how are we?
CEO and a games producer at On Tilt Interactive, and of course the fabulous Craig Brown here with us today as well.
Cheers.
So thank you so much, Ryan, for joining us. And with no further ado, I think I'll pass it over to Craig to start the stream and to start the questions.
Thanks a bunch, Matt. Very excited to have you here, Ryan. Thanks so much for spending some of your time with it.
Yeah, cool. This is awesome. His voice is gone.
Hello. Hello.
There we go.
Okay, there we go. Sorry. I was doing my Alf impersonation as well, so I'm sorry that you all missed out on that. How long ago were you a graduate, Ryan? Well, when did you graduate from the course?
So we did a postgraduate, the GDML, the Game Development Management and Learning. So we finished that in 2018. Yeah, we did that in 2018. So we would have finished our second year at AIE in 2017.
Cool. And which course did you do before doing the GDML?
So I did the advanced diploma in game design.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Nice. How did you, I guess one of the things I always encounter when I'm talking to people is they talk about how hard it is to decide between like design, programming, and art. How did you know it was the design course that you wanted to jump into?
I have a monkey brain, so programming isn't really something I can jump behind super effectively and do well. I can do it a little bit, but not to the level that I would need to. Art was kind of my go-to at the beginning, but then I thought, like I'm a better people person, so I decided to go a little bit more towards the design route.
Yeah, nice. And what are you up to now? Whereabouts are you working? What's your journey been like to get there?
Oh, so we were very poor, very, very, very poor when we left our incubator, which was the end of last year. Because of all of the COVID stuff, we decided to move away from the Game Plus offices for a little while, but then we missed it so much that we decided to go back. Honestly, the biggest reason for going to Game Plus is because of the networking. It's just amazing, like phenomenally helpful when you're trying to start a business yourself.
Nice. And I guess for anyone that doesn't know Game Plus, what is it?
So it is a collaborative workplace for game developers. Yeah. So our Game Plus has the likes of Mighty Kingdom and Foxy Games, which are really big mobile game developers here in SA.
Nice. Cool.
We have a bunch of other people as well. Like there's even business application type stuff that goes on in there. Like Team Go, I think deals with a lot of back end client stuff. There's a good mixture of people in there.
Cool. Yeah, and that's in the Adelaide Game Plus.
Yeah, that's Adelaide Game Plus. Yeah.
Cool. Nice. And I guess one of the awesome studios in there is your studio. Can you tell us a little bit about who your studio is and what kind of projects you work on?
So On Tilt Interactive is a virtual reality specialist company. We do serious games, but we've been doing, or most of our successes come from business application. So believe it or not, VR is actually a fantastic tool for businesses to train and learn and educate people on how to do things. And we've kind of, we rode that wave into popularity. So yeah, that's kind of where we've been getting most of our business from lately.
Cool. So that's working with external clients and delivering solutions that suit their needs?
Yeah, absolutely. When we first started, so this was in our second year of AIE, we first started off with product visualization for a company called SRT. They had us make environments and scenes and that displayed their products. And I'm assuming that they went off and took that to their clients because they were kind of like the middleman for, how do we market our supermarkets properly and, how does the milk look in this location? And so we help them do that in virtual reality, whereas, it could have cost a lot of money to do that otherwise, like, in real life.
Cool. And why do you think clients are so drawn to the VR experience for showing that off rather than just having a Word doc that says there is milk on a shelf?
Well, it's the scale, I think. That's the biggest thing I think gets people when they put VR on their head for the first time, is the scale. And like a lot of people here probably play Skyrim, like on a keyboard and mouse, you get the impression that it's big, but when you have it in VR, like it's huge, it's enormous. Like you almost don't want to even attempt to walk in it. It's that big, sort of thing. So
yeah.
So it gives a really good focal point for things as well.
Cool. Okay. And what was your role again at the studio?
Okay, so I wear a lot of different hats. My main roles are project management and design, but I also do a lot of client management, marketing. I deal with everything other than game development at this point, which I wish I didn't, but it's kind of something I have to do.
So by client management, are you talking about like setting their expectations of what your team's able to deliver and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I will go to events and I will corner a person and give them my business card and say, hey, I want to work with you. That's pretty much how a lot of my contracts come through, which is a really good way to make money, especially if you're a game developer and you need a little bit of, you need a license or something, or somebody needs something. Contracts, especially small ones, are really good for that. But I will also deal with invoicing and quotes, and making sure that the communication between my team and the client is as good as it can be, because communication can get pretty messy, especially when you're dealing with people spending money on things.
Yeah. How many of people are a part of On Tilt?
Okay, so originally we started off with 5. That was when we started our incubator. One of our artists left for a great job opportunity somewhere in the middle of that incubator. So at the moment we have 4 people who are working full-time with On Tilt Interactive. We do have contractors, though, that we do call on to help us, put some stuff together, like wherever our skills are kind of lacking, but we don't need it as like an everyday thing. And we also do a lot of work with students and stuff as well. One of the big advocacies of my company is helping, new game developers get into, that first release of a game, or, that little bit of education that they need to help, get them started.
Cool. Yeah. Building that portfolio is so important. And it's really cool to hear that you're helping people do that.
Yeah.
And congratulations on being able to pull in contractors when you need to. It's super interesting how such a small team of like a core team of 4 is able to work with clients and deliver 3D experiences and virtual reality experiences. Is there ever a disconnect between what clients think you're able to deliver and what you're able to actually produce with such a small team?
All the time. All of the time. One of the biggest things that I have to do is kind of bring the expectations of the client down a little bit, because, like we have had requests for super crazy, big jobs that, you couldn't possibly finish in the timeline that they're asking for and stuff. But I think the communication between client and team is pretty good most of the time.
Awesome. Yeah. And so did the game design and production course that you did, I guess, with a highlight on the production side, that helped you learn the skills in order to communicate effectively what's possible in the space and talk to both the programmers and artists and designers, but also then the clients as well?
Oh, yeah. So doing the design thing through AIE, the first little bit that you learn is like, I guess the hard skills that you kind of need to have a concept of before you go into the professional settings. So we started off with like the rudimentals in programming and art, and what those programs look like and how artists, put things together. So one of the big things that we had was learning that in the beginning, and then having a set of tools that we can use along the way to help communicate plans and ideas and all of that sort of stuff effectively in a way that's not going to overwhelm the other disciplines.
Yeah. Make sure that it's all clear so everyone knows what they're doing. Is there much of a difference of designing games versus designing client experiences?
Well, that's a really tough question. Look, I'm going to say each and every single contract that you get and do is going to be different in some way to games, because the need that the client has for that product is going to be much different to what a gamer wants from their game. I think there are some fundamentals. Obviously, learning through fun and enjoying the experience is a big part of having a good application that people can use. But yeah, there's slight differences there, I think. Especially in the learning sense, yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a hard one to answer. That's good.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I should have just threw that one out there. We'll see if anyone, and I guess if anyone else is watching and has similar very tough questions for Ryan, pop them in the chat. Yep. And we'll see if we get a chance to ask them on stream. So as a producer / designer, what does your day look like? And are some days you're more designer than producer?
Oh, yeah. So my team has a need to have things very structured. So what we do to kind of help us get started in the day is we have a thing called a stand-up meeting every morning at 10 o'clock. And basically what that does is it covers what we did yesterday, what we're going to do today, and are there any roadblocks in the way that I, as the project manager, can help you kind of overcome, or anything like that. Because one of the biggest things that you're going to need to do this sort of stuff is communication. If you're not communicating with your team, you're not going to get anything done ever. So yeah, that's the first thing we do. And then I will typically go through our project management tools. So we use Hack and Plan, which works well for us. There are lots of others. I'm sure a lot of other people use things like Trello. And then I kind of just sit down and I'll plan out the next lot of tasks or whatever needs to be done. I like to keep that as an iterative thing. So getting the team in and having a conversation with me about what I want them to do or what the project needs of them, so that we're all on the same page. We all know what needs to go in. I'm not just making tasks up out of nowhere, and then, there isn't that conversation about whether or not this is achievable in this time frame. So yeah, that's pretty much what I do. And then I put my designer hat on, and that'll be just me sitting in, testing a game, repetitively, or putting whatever it needs to be put in.
Nice. Big fan of Michael's question here. What barriers did you have getting from where you started to where you are today?
Okay. So I think one of the biggest barriers was networking events. Mm-hmm. I've said this before and I'll say it again. I think the best way to make money, especially for newer developers, is you have to network. You have to know where people are and where you can get work from in order to start making that little bit of money. So I would say that's probably one of the biggest ones. The other ones is the decision that you have to make with yourself and your team as to whether or not your company is going to go down the path of contracts. That was a big one for us. In the beginning, we decided that we wanted to concentrate more on games than we did contracts. Mm-hmm. And I think that hurt us a lot, because it meant that we didn't have as much money as we needed when certain things came around, like licensing and, that sort of stuff. But then we made the switch back into contracts again, and then everything kind of just sort of slid together, which was great. We had money in the account. We could hire the office out. We could get all of the licenses and stuff we needed. And, it's fantastic just networking with people, Biggest barrier that a lot of people in the games industry need to overcome. Cool.
So it's an important skill. And I guess the did the course help you in any way? Like the people you started the studio with, were they just people that you met through networking, or how did you build this collection of awesome devs?
Okay, yeah, so AIE helped me in the sense of being able to reach out and kind of work and collaboratively with people who are my peers. And like, I guess the story for me was before I went to AIE, I didn't even know that you could go to a game school. You know, I didn't think these things existed. And then one of my friends told me that, you know, AIE existed, and that got me all hyped for it. And I started learning about game stuff. But I knew before I went to AIE that I wanted to start my own business. Like, I was very practical in the sense that getting a job in the industry, you know, at a place like Mighty Kingdom or something like that, where it's super competitive, you know, there's hundreds of people applying, you know, it's like a lottery win, you know, and I wanted to kind of be the master of my own future a little bit. And I went into AIE with the intention of kind of making my own business. And because I knew that from the onset, I set out very early in networking with people and trying to get them interested in some of the ideas that I had. And that kind of reinforced why I was a designer as well, you know?
Cool. Perfect. So was it a case of you knew you wanted to... Oh, sorry. Matt, you had anything you wanted to add?
Yes, I do apologize for the YouTube. I can't pull up the question for you, but I will read it out. We do have a question from Alfiro. Ryan, what's your experience with design, and how does it change depending on the context and medium? Good question.
Why do you have to ask these hard questions?
Good question. What was the person's name again?
Alfiro.
Nice one.
I do apologize if I'm reading
It's a great question. So, I mean, I guess we're kind of going into the philosophy a little bit as well, because design is a very, very broad thing, in the sense that, you know, you have people that are project managers, and then you have people that are like very specifically concentrating on mechanics and stuff like that. So what I like to do is have a process that I undergo whenever I'm thinking about a problem, because that's what designers do. We think about problems. You know, how do I get the player to interact with this? How long is this supposed to take? You know, insert problem here. And then I have a process of, you know, sitting down, thinking about it, going through the motions of, you know, do I talk to other people? Do I have a solution for this? And that doesn't really change from problem to problem. Like, I will always kind of at a base level do that. But when you start talking about like the different genres of games and stuff like that, you then you're starting to play around with a little bit more of the concept of how well can I research this product well enough to then make something that works within this medium, you know? And I think that's a big important thing as well, is like designers need to research constantly. You need to figure out what it is you're making, where that falls within your marketplace, and like how that should be effective.
Is that research? I think so. No, it was a super interesting question, because as far as like we can see on screen that you've been doing a lot of and the client experiences, you've been doing a lot of work in VR. Is it? Do you have to come at it with a different design mentality, or like research what it's like to be a ninja crawling through a grate or something like that in order to properly design those experiences?
Yeah, so what we're trying to do with Justice was play around with the perspective, right? Because everything's scale. Like, everything in VR is about scale and using your body as the controller. So it's not more changing a design philosophy to try and make it work in VR. It's more, what do I have to work with and how can I make that effective? You know, like, it's still, your body is still a controller. Like, how can I make that work as a controller?
Nice.
You don't necessarily have to... Yeah, sorry.
No, you go.
Yeah, so like controls in VR is just, you got to make sure that you're paying attention to the fact that they are using their bodies, and that the traditional sense of stopping players from doing things isn't going to work like it does in a traditional game.
So like when you're thinking of ideas and mechanics, are you just sitting there in the office just waving your arms about, being like, okay, if I pull myself over here before you spend the time with the programmers, or are you able to visualize that without waving everything around?
I can mostly visualize it in my head, yeah. But I do play a lot of VR as well, believe it or not, outside of my work time. So I have a good understanding of kind of what's going on, what is fun, I guess, in VR. Like, I think it's pretty good. It's a pretty solid thing to say that VR is very much built to be something like for shooters, for example, or horror games, where the gun mechanics and reloading things. Yeah, but being in the world. Like, I played Paranormal Activity in VR, and that scared the living Christ out of me. Like, I don't get that out of regular games. I don't get that scared.
Yeah, big pass on that. Scary games are bad enough, but when you put me in VR, I can't even deal.
Yeah.
Is that experience almost too? If someone hasn't tried VR before, but they want to get into VR development, do they have to go out and get like the PC that can run the Vive, or is the Quest something, or is Google Cardboard a viable solution as well? What level are clients looking for?
So I can't really speak for everybody, right? Because that's a hard question, because everybody wants something different. Primarily what we use is the old school Vive, the HTC Vive, just because, it's cheap, affordable, sorry, and it's easy to get your hands on, and it doesn't require a hugely powerful computer. You do have to have a recent computer, but you can make do. There are a lot of standalone headsets as well. I know people that work on I forget the name of that Google one now. The Oculus something. The Oculus Go? Or something like that. It's a standalone headset, and it's all on board, so you don't need a computer to be able to do that. And we have done contracts with people with 360-degree videos. That sort of stuff is really popular amongst filmies and real estate, for example. Like, real estate's a really good one to get into. Actually, that's a good one. Being able to walk through a house for an inspection without actually being there. Now, if you're smart, right, because of all this COVID stuff, the real estate market's not going anywhere. But, you've got VR. You can have a quick little walk around in a house without actually having to go there. So,
nice. Matt, cut the stream. I'm taking all these tips and not passing them on to anyone. Does the designer side of you ever at conflict with your producer side? Is your producer side ever been like, no, let's just get this out, but as a designer you're like, yeah, but like we could add this cool thing?
So there was a great man that used to teach me at AIE, and he said that there was a couple of different two types of people within game development. There's the super emotional artistic type, and then there's the super logical analytical kind of person. He, of course, was more towards the artistic side of things. I tend to travel up and down that spectrum very quickly. When I'm in design mode, I need to be a little bit more emotional, because the best way to reach your audience is through emotions, right? Like, if you can make them feel something while playing your game, then you're going to have a much closer relationship with them when they're going through your product. And then, of course, you've got the other side of the spectrum where it's like, okay, we've spent this amount of time on this product and it's time to get it out the door. Come on, guys. I know you all want to, spend another 6 months on this product, but we can't. So,
Cool. A wild Matt has appeared.
Yes, another question time from L3O again. Awesome question.
Yeah,
so,
Brace is going to be a good one.
How have you shaped your environments around the VR space since it's more enclosed?
Yeah.
How have you shaped your environments?
Yes, around the VR space since it's more enclosed.
So I guess I'm a little confused there. Like, I feel like there's two different answers I could give. Is he talking about like the physical side of things, or is he talking about the virtual side of things? Because if you're talking about the physical kind of things, you want to make sure that you're not sticking your hands through somebody's wall or head. So, you want to make sure that there's a bit of space there. But if you're talking about virtually, I really don't think there's that much of a difference between standard building of a world in virtual reality and standard gaming. I think both are perfectly good methods that we still use, while we're making our games. So I guess you do want to kind of avoid unnecessary like height. Like you don't want to be going up and down all the time because that can be a bit jarring, or just, like really bumpy surfaces, like stairs, for example. You don't want in traditional games, you can see the character kind of bobbing down a little bit. But in VR, you don't really want that because that's going to make you sick. So you want to make that like a smooth ramp kind of. And there's tricks around that as well. But, I don't know. That's an interesting question. I'd like to have a little bit more of a clarification on it, I think.
Thank you, Alfredo.
Yeah, nice. Cool. I guess casting your mind back, you mentioned that you knew you wanted to start up your own business on that side of things. Before looking at AA, was it always games business that you wanted to get at, or was it a case of, you mentioned how you didn't really know AA was the thing, but did it ever feel like a real career that you could actually have, or was it always just a distant dream of like, making games for a living or VR would be great?
Look, I think by the time I hit 30, I just didn't care anymore. Like I'd had really crappy jobs before that, spreading from, security to all kinds of stuff, working in supermarkets and stuff. It just didn't entertain me. It wasn't what I wanted to do. I guess games just kind of gave me the excuse of being able to kind of chase something that I enjoyed, like because I played a lot of games even before I wanted to be a game developer. And it just kind of it seemed like a natural fit. It seemed like the kind of environment that I would want to surround myself with. And I have. That's what I do now. Yeah. I think that's the important thing. I think it's mentality going into it, right? Like you got to know kind of what you want, especially if you're trying to start your own business, because, it can be very stressful. A lot of people get like mental health problems and stuff from, overworking and just poor management styles and stuff. So you really want to be sure about yourself and, move into it with an open mind and the ability to learn new things and stuff.
Nice. And it was super interesting. So the vast majority of people who come to AA are fresh out of year 12. How was that experience coming in, having worked in jobs that you probably didn't like? Was it a huge decision, or did that worry you at all?
I mean, like that's just the difference in, the age, I guess. I think I joined AIE when I was 27 or 28, something like that. I'd worked a lot of different jobs. I'd had careers and things, all kinds of crazy stuff. And I was at the point in my life where I had earned money and I'd had stability and all of that sort of stuff, and that just wasn't doing it for me anymore. I wanted something that I could devote myself to. Whereas a lot of younger people, especially even the people on my team, the younger people in my team, for example, you can see it in them. Like they want to, go off and earn money, and it's like I don't think anybody really thinks about what they're actually passionate about and setting themselves up to reach that goal. The biggest advice I can give anybody is don't be in such a rush to, just do things. You know what I mean? Think about it. See if it's going to make you happy. Customers don't want to hear that you want to suck money from them. You know what I mean? They want to know that whatever you're providing them is a service that they will enjoy, and that there is emotional attachment there, and they can trust you and stuff. And if you want to be good at business, you kind of have to learn that. It's not about making money. It's about providing something to somebody of value.
Cool. And leading on from that, as far as advice you would give to someone who's looking specifically to get into the games industry, is there any advice you would give them, be it specifically for designers or programmers or artists, or just development in general?
I think I can probably talk to all of the different fields here. I'd say the first thing that you want to do is kind of learn the basics. You know what I mean? Don't try and make it too complicated on yourself. Just do the small little bits of things that you can. Understand that it is far better to work in a team than it is by yourself. For obvious reasons, projects aren't going to take you 3 years to make, being one of them. And fail quickly. That's a big one. your first game's probably not going to be successful. Mine wasn't. I don't think I know anybody whose was successful. So you want to get that experience out of the way as quickly as possible. And the way to do that is to create your product as quickly as humanly possible. Make sure that you've got a good strategy behind you, do your research, and learn from it when you, if you do fail, learn from that, do your due diligence, and move on.
Definitely, yeah. You don't want to be working on that first game for 5 years.
No, that's a mistake I've seen a lot of people make, and it doesn't end well.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a question for you, Ryan, that I just thought of.
Yeah, sure.
You said that your first game you did not succeed with. Did that have, what sort of impact did that have on you and your psyche or your motivation to keep going and to get better? Was it something that stopped you in your tracks and you weren't ready for, or was it something you knew was kind of going to happen at some point?
Well, you see, that's the thing. When I was going through AIE, a lot of people said that your first game is probably going to fail. So I guess the thing that shocked me was the level at which something can fail. You know what I mean? You know that you can fail, but you don't know how bad you can fail. And I think that's the shocking part. And I think it does take a bit of, resilience to kind of pull yourself together and, move on with that. Because our first game flopped really, really bad. It still sold some copies. And to me, that is, I've kind of learnt to grow that into a success, right? Some people bought it. Some people actually reviewed it. It didn't review bad either. And a lot of people from China seem to want to pirate it. So, that's my success. That's what I'm taking from it. You know what I mean? That helps me sleep at night. But, I guess what we're trying to do is look at why it failed. So we did come up with a couple of solutions, especially because we were young as well at that point, was, the design wasn't as where it needed to be. So I took responsibility for that, and I started to involve myself in researching, how can I make that better? And one of the biggest things that our team had trouble with at the time was communicating and organizing. So if I can't get into contact with people because, they're not rocking up on time, or, something's not being said or written down somewhere, you can't really do anything with that. You know what I mean? And a lot of things fall through the cracks, and, something that doesn't seem very bad at the time can actually have a domino effect that can just create chaos down the track. So we realized pretty early on that we had to fix that, and it's something that we still work on today. We're constantly looking at new ways of communicating and getting information down properly, and even new production methods and stuff. We've looked at all of them. It's just constantly learning.
Yeah, cool, nice. Thank you so much for that, and excellent question, Matt. Just before we let you leave, if someone wanted to take their first steps into development, AIE actually has the perfect opportunity coming up on the 15th, which is tomorrow. You should still be able to register this evening, just to give your local events officer a little bit of a panic. If we can pull it up on screen now, we have Industry Experience Day tomorrow. So that'll be from 10 till 3:30 at your local campus in either Adelaide, Sydney, or Canberra. Really good chance to go hands-on with a bunch of the software. You see on the right, you can just register there. And then when your events officer walks in the morning, they'll be like, oh my God, we've got another 20 registrations, quick, make places. And that can be their problem in the morning. Next week, we're going to be very lucky. If you enjoy and want to hear more chats, we'll actually be talking to Abigail Livermore. Abigail is a grad who's working as a production coordinator and has worked at studios like Plastic Wax and all that jazz. Head to the AIE website if you want to find out more about that session next week. And the YouTube link's up, and we'll put it up on Facebook very soon. But Ryan, thank you so much for spending some time with us and providing us so much insight into starting a business and being a producer and developer, that kind of thing.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Well,
Cool.
I hope everyone enjoyed tonight, and I thank everyone for participating. Sorry for any audio issues that were at the start, but hopefully we fixed all them. So thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.